We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday evening edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Every single time that we think everything is about to slow down, boom, we get news. And today was no exception. We have ourselves a jam-packed April show. By the way, this is a Nico-free show. We've talked a lot of Nico over the last couple days. Today, though, it's all college hoops. By the way, should mention, Torres is battling a little something, a little bit of a head cold here. So this is my MJ flu game. I'm going to try not to sniffle. I'm going to try not to sneeze. But, we're fighting. Listen, it's portal season, baby. We're all a little bit, ragged right now, but we're going to fight through it because we got ourselves a jam-packed show. We're going to open. I actually want to start with Arkansas. A lot of conversation about Arkansas. They get the two guys earlier this week. To me, the conversation now becomes, who are the star players that are going to come back? Is Carter Knox a lock? Is DJ Wagner a lock? Trevin Brazil, Billy Richmond? And most importantly, how soon will we get news on them? Because, some news has to start coming soon. From there, we have to talk about just a wild portal day. I've been waiting for a slew of big names to enter. It officially happened on Thursday. Chad Baker-Mazara in the portal. PJ Haggerty in the portal. Dane Danger in the portal. Andrej Stojackovic in the portal. Woo, baby. I hope you saved a couple nickels and dimes in your NIL collective because the money, we got some good players in the portal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We'll wrap with what I think are two interesting high school stories. It feels like we are finally about to get a conclusion on Nate Ament, the 5-star who has dragged out this recruitment about as long as he possibly could. And we got to talk about this international star, Dame Sarr, okay? Played at FC Barcelona from Italy, and he is the apple of everybody's eye right now, kind of the hottest rising prospect here in this portal cycle. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day on YouTube. We surpassed 55,000 subscribers this week. You guys are amazing. I remember we were fighting to get to 50. I remember we were fighting to get to 10. I mean, this was years ago now. But we are at 55,000 subscribers. We are on track to have another monster month. We appreciate your support. So make sure you're subscribed. Turn on those notifications because we're not slowing down. If PJ Haggerty wants to hang out in the portal for 6 weeks, we're going to hang out as long as he's willing to wait as well. But it's a fun time of year. We're loading up, so make sure you're subscribed. Also, do me a favor. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. As a matter of fact, producer Matt, do me a favor. Find the Apple link. Throw it in the YouTube chat so people can go ahead and subscribe there. Downloads are important. So you want to do your boy Torres a favor? Go download like 5-10 episodes, of the last couple weeks. We appreciate the support. It really does help us move up those Apple and Spotify charts. Speaking of making moves, know who's making moves? The hottest health food snack going. That is our friends, our partners, Cauli Puffs and CauliPuffs.com. Okay, so I've told you about Cauli Puffs for a month now, but it is that time of year. We're about to hit summer. We're at the end of April. It's going to be May. You're going to want to get that beach body, that lake body, that, river, wherever you're spending time with your shirt off this summer. You're going to need to get a little bit into shape. Torres included, by the way. I'm not criticizing anybody, trust me. And to get in shape, you know what you're going to need? You're going to need a snack that is healthy but delicious as well. Folks, my friends, you're going to need Cauli Puffs and CauliPuffs.com. Okay, so I've told you about Cauli Puffs for months, but this is the alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. You've eaten the Doritos, you've eaten the Fritos. Now, again, you got to get out of that winter bod and into the spring and summer bod. And the cool part about this, great family-owned company, okay? I saw Joey and Brian, the two founders of Cauli Puffs, saw them this past weekend. They're fired up about the growth. They appreciate our support, but we need to keep it going, okay? So what are Cauli Puffs for those of you who are new to the show? Well, Like I said, healthy alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. No Doritos, no Fritos, because what's the difference here? They're baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. The best part is, though, they taste freaking delicious, okay? For more information, this is what I need you to do. I need you to visit Caulipuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com. Caulipuffs.com. You can also check them out on Amazon.com. They are available on Amazon. Whatever you got in your cart, throw a couple bags of Collie Puffs in. Try them for yourself. You're going to like them. Producer Matt is telling me that he has thrown the Cheez-Its in the garbage and gotten Collie Puffs for himself. Producer Matt said, quote, game changer. Guess what? It's going to be a game changer in your life as well. Caulipuffs.com. Caulipuffs.com. With that said, oh, you thought things were slowing down here in mid-April? There is no more time to waste. I'm here to tell you things aren't slowing down, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, portal is all over the place right now, but what I will say is that while the portal is not yet slowing down, we're going to get to some portal stuff in a minute. I want to have a conversation about the Arkansas Razorbacks. Okay, John Calipari coming off a Sweet 16. We talk about him a lot. But to me, it's been a very interesting week for the Razorbacks. Let me explain why. The bottom line is this, is that when earlier this week, so Calipari hadn't really gotten anybody out of the portal at all this spring. And so the spring is going on. We're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with this team? Boogie Flan declares, Adu Thero declares. We haven't heard from any of the potential returnees. And then, of course, Arkansas lands Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle in the portal a few days ago. And so we talked about on the show. I thought they were two very solid additions. And, of course, when we discussed them, I think Arkansas fans were fired up, understood what it was about. But then you had those other schools and those other fan bases that were like, wow, two mid players. How good are they? Why are you talking about them? And what I have said consistently about Arkansas is this. If Arkansas has to make their big moves in the portal, that's actually bad news for Arkansas because Arkansas has an elite recruiting class coming in headlined by two McDonald's All-Americans, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas. By the way, if you saw Darius Acuff at that Nike Hoops Summit on Saturday night, goodness gracious, is he a special player, okay? But they have the four high school players coming in, two that I think will be difference makers next year. But to me, the story of this offseason success or failure will be defined on will they be able to retain four key players off of last year's Sweet 16. DJ Wagner, Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, Trevin Brazil. And as we now enter late April, none of them as we record here, and I always like to say it's 6:11 Eastern time on Thursday. So by the time you watch this, stuff may have changed, okay? None of them have officially announced they're coming back. The portal is still open for a couple days. You always got to worry a little bit about that. But what I want to do is just spend a minute talking about who are these guys? How likely are they that they come back? And then most importantly, what will this Arkansas team look like if they get all four guys back? And as producer Matt has at the bottom of the screen, remember, if you are an Arkansas fan, if you're new to the show, Torres on the Hogs on Twitter, Torres on the Hogs for all your late breaking Arkansas news. And there is still a lot to discuss. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the four players. I'm going to talk about, in my opinion, the most important players. They're all important, okay? So I don't want to diminish anybody. But let's start with let's talk the four guys that in theory could come back that have not yet announced. Again, it's now 6:12 Eastern time, so always subject to change. Let's get into the four of them. Where I want to start is DJ Wagner. And it's funny because I was on with my buddy Wes Moore. Wes Moore, by the way, shout out to Wes. If you remember, he was the one that broke the John Calipari to Arkansas news last year. I was on with Wes Moore on his radio show in Little Rock the other day, and we got into an interesting debate of like, who is the most important of the four? He said Carter Knox, and we'll get to Carter Knox in a minute. I still think it's DJ Wagner, okay? Now, maybe I'm a little biased because we've had DJ Wagner on this show. I'm obviously a big fan of him, who he is, what he's about, what he's become, the adversity that he's overcome in college basketball. But why, in my opinion, he is the most important to return is that college basketball time and time again, doesn't matter how many 5-stars you have. You need veterans, and you need veterans specifically in the backcourt, okay? This Florida team that just won a national championship, what was their story? Walter Clayton, fifth-year senior. Will Richard, 5th-year senior. Elijah Martin, 5th-year senior. You go back to the UConn teams that had success. Tristan Newton, 5th-year senior. He wasn't the best NBA draft prospect on that team, but he was a veteran point guard. Remember, 2 years ago, when UConn had Steph Castle, who was probably going to be NBA Rookie of the Year, when they had Donovan Clingan, it was Tristan Newton, a 5th-year guard, who was the Final Four most outstanding player. And so when you look at Arkansas, listen, Darius Acuff is great. I just gushed about him a minute ago. Malik Thomas is great, but you want that veteran guard. It's why I think DJ Wagner is important. Keep in mind, by the way, I'll also say this, is that what's interesting about DJ, I thought by the end of the year, he was one of the best guards in the SEC by the end of the year. I know things didn't end great against Texas Tech, but remember, 24 points in that win over Mississippi State, final day of the regular season. 14 points and 6 assists against Kansas in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. 13.6 assists against South Carolina in the SEC tournament. He was playing as well as anybody down the stretch. Now, what'll be interesting is what actually happens next and what his decision is. I don't think he's really a guy that's going to declare for the draft, but there has been kind of buzz on and off about will he enter the portal. And I think for people sitting there saying, why would he possibly enter the portal? I've said it a few times. You have 2 5-star guards coming in, and I think every player, whether I personally like it or not, has to look out for their own best interests, has to look out for, okay, there's 2 5-stars coming in. Am I going to have the ball in my hands? Am I going to be in the same role? Am I going to have to come off the bench? What is my role going to be? How am I going to play with these guys? And so there's been buzz all offseason about, is he actually going to enter or not? Now, what I will say, for the 3rd time at 6:15 Eastern time, always subject to change, I've had a few whiffs during portal season. I think what I have heard as of right now on Thursday, April 17th, I think Arkansas is expecting DJ Wagner back. I hope he comes back because I think he is an integral part of what they do. But obviously, look, everybody's in the portal. Everybody needs players. We're going to talk about all of the portal entries over the last couple hours. But I think, as of right now, he's coming back. So I think he's really important. I will be curious to see what the decision is when it's made. I'll also say this, too. I'll be interested in if these players actually even make an announcement, right? Portal closes next week, but if you're not going to the NBA, you don't have to make any official. I'll be curious. DJ Wagner to me is most important. We'll see what happens with him. Let's get to number 2. And like I said, had a little fun embrace debate with my buddy Wes Moore. We talked next about Carter Knox, okay? So Carter Knox to me, listen, if you want to argue he's maybe the most important player that could potentially come back, I'm not going to fight you on it. Because by the end of the season this year, that kid was a freaking dog for Arkansas, okay? Sweet 16 game against Texas Tech, 20 points, 6 rebounds, about 8, chest-pounding dunks, 4 for 4 from 3. He was the best player on the floor that night for Arkansas. In the second round against St. John's, that big win, 15 points, 6 boards for him. If he doesn't show up ready to play, they don't win. And so what'll be interesting about Carter Knox is, I think we spend so much time talking about the portal, talking about 5-stars, talking about this, talking about that. The one thing I'll say, he's a very interesting player because he is a potential returnee that I think could develop into an all-SEC guy. And what's fascinating about him is, as good as he was, I could be wrong. I'm not really worried that much about NBA draft stuff at this time on the calendar. I'm kind of focused on the portal. But every piece of draft intel is, I don't think he's a guy that people are considering like an NBA draft prospect right now. I think they think he can get there a year from now. But the game has changed so much. I think if this was 7-8 years ago, if this was 2015 instead of 2016, this might be a kid that has to consider entering the NBA draft. Hope you get a first round, hope you figure out a way into the first round. Hope you get a guarantee. Now you don't have to worry about hope. You could come back, be a very accomplished, very highly compensated college basketball player. And like I said, this was a kid that, don't let the stats fool you, 8.5 points per game as a freshman. But first of all, 8.5 points per game as a freshman is nothing to scoff at. 35%. If he comes back ready to work, we are talking about him as potentially one of the best players in the SEC. And I think potentially a top 10 pick. Listen, there's a couple guys across the country, not just Arkansas, that I'm fascinated to see what they do. This kid is amongst the top of them because I think if he decides to come back, could be a total X factor, total game changer. Speaking of a late season X factor game changer, Trevin Brazile, man, we've talked about him a lot over the last couple weeks. I keep using this quote, but I really do like it. Jay Billis said this late in the year. He really struggled early. And I think you ask most Arkansas fans mid to late January, hey, is TB coming back? They would have said, nah, probably not. And that's okay. We're okay with it. We can live without him. Well, as the season wears on, you deal with injuries, and what ends up happening? Adu Thero's out. Big Z deals with all sorts of injuries late in the season. And so what ends up happening? You need Trevin Brazile. And the line that Jay Billis kept using that I absolutely loved, that I thought was awesome, was pretty straightforward. It was sometimes you need to be needed. And that was Trevin Brazile late in the year. Wasn't great early. It's like the old Ja Rule song, not always there when you call, but he was always on time when you needed him. Final probably month of the season, was he one of the most impactful players in all of college basketball? I mean, you look at some of the stat lines that he had. I mean, I always say it is that the SEC, Jimmy Dykes likes to say the SEC is the second most athletic league in all of college basketball, or in all of the world, behind only the NBA. Even in the SEC, Trevin Brazile kind of stood out as an elite athlete among the elite athletes. 16.7 boards in the SEC tournament against South Carolina, 15-11 against Ole Miss, 11-12. Remember, Kansas had that game swung. Trevin Brazile had back-to-back offensive rebounds and putbacks, okay? And so I'm fascinated with him. He's another one that probably isn't really an NBA prospect. I'll say this. You're going to have to break out the checkbook to keep all these guys, but I think if you're an Arkansas fan, you should feel really good about Trevin Brazile. And I think he comes back with the confidence of he would be the starting four-man for that team. If he is the starting four-man, you are in great shape, probably starting Malik Ewan alongside him. But you just talk about a guy in a team that I think if he comes back, he becomes one of the biggest difference makers in all of college basketball on the defensive end, on the rebounding end, all of that. So, yeah, Trevin Brazile, I expect him back. I expect Carter Knox back. DJ Wagner, it feels like every single day it fluctuates, but I would expect Trevin Brazile back. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about Billy Richmond. I mean, the people's champ, probably the favorite among Hog fans over the last couple months of the season. I used the analogy the other day. So most of us, you played football at some point, or high school football, or, low-level college football, or Pee Wee or whatever. We all had that one dude that kind of showed up and didn't really know exactly what to do or where to go, or, he's playing on defense and he doesn't really know what the assignment is. He just see ball, hit ball. Yeah. Shout out to, there was a kid in my high school named Alan Schaefer. He showed up to practice one day, just started blowing stuff up. Now he didn't make it long-term, but I bring it up because Billy Richmond's kind of that guy in basketball. It's didn't always know exactly where he was going or exactly what he was doing, but darn did he play hard. He's another one. 6'6". He's from Memphis. Obviously, Memphis needs some players right now, so we'll talk a little bit about them in a minute. But I just bring it up because, he was just a guy that I think as the season wore on, you saw the value in him. And he's another one that couldn't be defined by stats and box scores and whatever. Now, it's worth noting, did have 16 points in that win over St. John's in the second round, but he was just one. He just brought energy. I actually thought, what I thought really stood out about him? When Arkansas was down to 1 point guard with DJ Wagner, I thought he actually did a pretty good job of handling the point in the always tough SEC. So I'll tell you what, we should start getting answers on those guys soon. But I just bring it up. Oh, well, look at this. Right as we record, I appreciate producer Matt telling me this as we're recording, because it looks as though Carter Knox is officially let's see here. It looks like he has officially declared for the NBA draft with eligibility, though. Listen, I'll just say this. I'll be really quick on this. Again, this is why I always try to timestamp these shows, but I just bring it up because he's a guy. If he doesn't have that first round guarantee, and we're talking about, he's going to come back and make probably $2.5, $3 million. So we'll see what happens with him. We talked about it a little bit with Otega Owe. Last episode when Kentucky's best player declared for the draft. There is no problem in declaring for the draft. It's one of those deals where get in front of NBA people, let them get to know you, all of that. But listen, everyone's got to do what's best for them. But I just bring it up because if you are in a situation where you have the opportunity to get in front of NBA people, you have a chance to, let them know a little bit about you, that's fine. But then again, if you don't have that first round guarantee, come back to college basketball and make $2, $3, $4 million next year. Yes, that's the going rate for a player of Carter Knox's abilities. So we'll see what happens. I would add this, and I'm seeing this in real time. It looks as though he's declaring for the draft, maintaining college eligibility. That's great. Here is the catch with that, and I think this is in a weird way a good thing. While he's busy declaring for the draft, you know what that means? He's not worried about the portal. So that's one player you don't have to worry about somebody The only people tampering with Carter Knox are the Miami Heat and the Phoenix Suns or the Golden State Warriors. You don't got to worry about somebody in college coming in with a crazy offer, but we'll see what happens from there. Carter Knox, listen, I've looked over the NBA draft stuff. I don't see him as a projected first-round pick. I will never tell. I say it all the time on this show. I said it with Otega Owe. We'll never tell someone what they should do. We'll never tell someone what is expected of them or that they made a wrong decision. But I just think any player, if you are not guaranteed a first-round pick, you are probably, if you're good enough to go through the process, but you're not a guaranteed first-round pick, you're probably going to make 7 figures playing college basketball next year. Come back, take the guaranteed money, get better. I think Carter Knox is one of them. Producer Matt, you just saved me. You just saved my bacon right there, because if we had closed this segment out without talking about that, then we would certainly be in a situation. Total speculation, because I think it's way too early to try to figure out who's comes back when and where. But I just bring it up to say that I think all of them ultimately probably end back. But I also I don't want to say I'd be surprised if he ended up in the NBA draft. I just think what I would say to that is that if he's not a guaranteed first-round pick, I think you really have to strongly consider about coming back. Tell you what, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get to some of your questions. We'll always prioritize Super Chats, so if you have any questions, we'll go ahead and do that. From there, we do have to talk about what became a wild portal day. Some big new names are in, and we've got a lot to discuss. We'll also talk Nate Ament. I think we're finally getting a conclusion on this kid's recruitment, and we will talk a little bit also about Dame Sarr. New name, everybody's got to get to know. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres podcast question. All right, everybody. All right, back. Good to be back. So there's an old saying in life, broken clock is right twice a day. I don't think that I am technically a broken clock. But one thing I've been saying for weeks now is it felt there was this huge rush of dudes that hit the portal to kind of start the portal cycle. All the names you know, Donovan Dent, Jaden Quaintance, you go on and on down the list, okay? And I only bring it up for this reason, is that as somebody who looks at these rosters constantly, as somebody who I just put out my new edition of the Way Too Early Top 25 today. We'll talk about it maybe on the next episode. I only bring it up because to me, it has always felt like we were about to get a crazy rush of players into the portal. And so far, up until Thursday, it really hadn't happened. We had sporadic players. Ian Jackson hit the portal, and there was a few other big names. But it just felt like there wasn't that big rush that we were expecting. And I go back to like what's going on in college basketball. Okay. And I want to get to the players that entered because there were some huge names on Thursday afternoon. But what was interesting to me is that, you look across college basketball and what has ended up happening is that you have a bunch of teams that were built around 4th, 5th, 6th year players this past year that basically long story short, 4th, 5th, 6th year players, all those guys are graduating. And what we forget is there are no more 5th and 6th year seniors to replace them. And so I'm looking at rosters and I'm looking at basically everybody still needs players. I mean, Purdue's in good shape, and that's basically it. Kansas needs players. Tennessee needs almost a whole roster. Auburn needs a few guys. Ole Miss needs players. Kentucky needs a guy or two. So I could go on and on, but the point I'm trying to make is it felt like we were going to get a rush at some point of dudes into the portal. And yeah, that's exactly what happened on Thursday. I think it's safe to say this was the craziest day of the portal so far. So let's go ahead and dive into all of the insanity, the big names that have entered, who's going to go where, all that good stuff. The first name, probably the biggest one we've had since the portal opened. PJ Haggerty is in the transfer portal, okay? For those of you who are not familiar, by the way, make sure you're always following our CBB Transfers page, CBB Transfers on Twitter, CBB Transfers on Instagram as well for all your late-breaking portal news. PJ Haggerty, let's go ahead and dive in. Woo, buddy, this is a big one, okay? So PJ Haggerty, for people who are not familiar, very interesting story. He was actually at Tulsa last year, had a really good year. He entered the portal, and he was just kind of a guy that I kind of like noticed, and he put up a lot of points, but I kind of said, how good is this kid really? Yeah, it turns out he's really good because you can see the notes that producer Matt has provided on the bottom of the screen. 21.7 points per game, about 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He was the AAC Player of the Year, and also he was a second-team All-American on virtually any All-American list you look at. And so you look at who this guy is. You look at what he is capable of. You look at the fact, by the way, and I think this is an important part. Some of his best, this wasn't, he padded his stats in the lousy AAC. This is a kid who had 25 points against Mizzou, 6 rebounds, 5 assists against Mizzou. It's a kid who had 27 points and 9 rebounds against Auburn. You may have heard of him. They made a Final Four. He had 27 points against Virginia, 24 against Mississippi State, 17 against Ole Miss. This kid is one of the best pure scorers in all of college basketball, and now he's hit the portal. I'll say this, I was kind of, again, I told you, I've been looking at rosters pretty much nonstop over the last couple of days, and I was thinking, like, it's been a very quiet offseason at Memphis, and he was one, like, he's kind of an interesting prospect because he's not really an NBA prospect, but he's a great college player. And so I just kind of wondered, I said, is he going to stay at Memphis? Could he consider? There's not much returning around him. Well, he is officially in the portal. As far as opportunities, I'll say this, the first thing I can tell you, be ready to break out the checkbook, okay? Just be, because every fan base is like, we're going to get him. No, he's our guy. He's going to. I will tell you this. I had 2 separate people tell me this on Thursday. So remember that report from about 2.5 weeks ago, JT Toppin, Big 12 Player of the Year, decides not even to test the NBA draft waters, and he decides that he's going to come back to college basketball and play for Texas Tech. And we saw the report that he was reportedly getting paid about $4 million over the course of next season at Texas Tech. Well, I bring it up. I had multiple people tell me, you want PJ Haggerty, he's looking for that Texas Tech money. Let me put it this way. When FedEx is out of money and they can't pay you, that means you're gonna come at a cost, okay? But what I will say, you know what you're getting. Like I said, 22 points per game at Memphis, a 36% three-point shooter. It was interesting because early in his career, he was able to score, but he didn't really shoot well. Now he is shooting well. Again, I think it's a little early to speculate. I'll say this. I've seen some Arkansas people say that they believe he could cross that border from whatever, what is it, West Tennessee? I'm sorry. I don't know my Arkansas, Memphis geography well enough. But maybe is this a potential Carter Knox replacement if Carter Knox stays in the draft? I don't know. And I'd be curious. We just talked about DJ Wagner. What's his future? This and that. I only bring it up to say that's one school that's been linked to him. But again, let me put it this way. I would say this. Think about the schools that need players and think about the schools that have a lot of money and we know have a lot of money. If you're a school that needs players and has money, I would think you're going to be in the mix for PJ Haggerty. Kansas needs players alongside Darren Peterson. Tennessee needs a lot of players. Ole Miss, I think we kind of just push aside Ole Miss. You think Chris Beard's coming to play for second place at Ole Miss? Remember, he's turned down Texas A&M to get more NIL funding, and they're a team right now that has missed on a fair number of guys. Jerron Pierre, they wanted bad, didn't get him. A couple other guys, Lamar Wilkerson was supposed to visit. He never made it. So I'm just saying, Ole Miss, Auburn still needs a couple guys. We'll talk about a former Auburn player here in a minute, but just a fascinating name to enter the portal. And I think when you start talking about potential first-team All-Americans next year, PJ Haggerty is in the mix. Like I said, he is looking for a big bag. And by the way, this is not a criticism. I don't blame anybody for doing it, but PJ Haggerty is a name to keep an eye out for. By the way, producer Matt tells me the Mississippi River is what separates Memphis from Arkansas. I knew the river was there. I just don't know if it's Eastern Tennessee, Western Tennessee. I think it's Western Tennessee into Arkansas. Anyway, let's keep it going. Bad day to be a Memphis Tiger. Whew. Cover your ears, Memphis fans, because you lost a second All-AAC first-team member, Dane Danger. That's a real name, not making it up. Power forward, was a first-team All-AAC member a year ago. Interesting backstory on him. So he's a big guy. Started his career at Baylor. He's another one. I believe, like LJ Cryer at Houston, was part of that Baylor national championship team in 21. Although maybe I could be wrong on that. He might have gotten there a year after. But anyway, started his career at Baylor. Ends up going to Illinois. And then this past year was kind of a guy like, I remember doing my portal rankings at this time last year. He wasn't a guy that was on anybody's top 50 list, top 100 list, top 150 list, but he kind of found the right spot, the right team for him. Averaged 15 points, 7 boards per game at Memphis, was an All-AAC first-team member, just like PJ Haggerty. Well, he is in the portal. The announcement came not long after PJ Haggerty. Listen, I'm not going to accuse, I ain't accusing nobody being broke, but probably not a great sign for Memphis that they lost those two in a short amount of time. I'll let everybody else speculate on what the NIL situation is there, but, so tough. I'll say this really quick. It's not going to make me friends at Arkansas or UT or whatever, Kentucky. I kind of feel bad for Memphis. I thought they were really good all year. Their starting point guard, Tyrese Hunter, gets hurt literally in the AAC semifinals. And I think they would have made a run if he was healthy. Now Tyrese Hunter graduates. PJ Haggerty is in the portal. Dane Danger is in the portal. Dane Danger, again, a little bit of a limited player as far as what he can do. He's not a three-point shooter. He's a within 5 feet of the basket kind of guy. But I'll tell you this, man, he is a low down low. He's another one. Again, I know he started at the mid-major level, or he didn't have success, at the high major level, but he was a guy, 16 points against Ole Miss, 16 points against FAU, which was obviously a pretty good team this year, 12 and 11 against Virginia, 18 and 7 against a good San Francisco team. So I'll be curious because he's the kind of guy, I don't think he's going to put up those numbers if he's playing night in and night out in the SEC or the Big Ten, but I do think he has value. We'll see what happens there. All right, let's get to the big name that caught everybody's attention on Thursday morning when it broke. We almost did a whole segment on Chad Baker-Mazara, okay? So Chad Baker-Mazara, if you're a college basketball fan, you know the name Chad Baker-Mazara, okay? Wing, 6'7", lefty, played at Auburn. He's a character. Let's put it that way. So Chad Baker-Mazara, okay. So let's get to some positives. Let's get to some negatives, okay? 12.5 points per game, 38% from three. elite wing defender. And the one thing you could say about Chad Baker-Mazara, pretty much a fearless player. He is a guy that basically, I don't want to say he carried Auburn in that Final Four game, but he was one of the few guys that showed up ready to play, was good to go. And really, I think, frankly, kind of played his best game played as well as anybody for Auburn in that Final Four game. Like I said, 18 points, 17 points in the second round against Creighton. This was a guy that went for 22 at Rupp Arena, went for 22 in a win over Ole Miss, went for 20 in a win over Mississippi State, and that was the game that Janai Broome got hurt and did not play. He is a very, very good player. But, and this is where it gets interesting, because we have certainly had a lot of fan bases kind of ask themselves the tough question, is this a guy we want to get involved with, right? A little bit of a hothead. Is that the right way to say it? Got a little bit of a temper to him. Listen, we called him the Dylan Brooks of college. Not me personally, but everybody. Kind of the Dylan Brooks of college basketball. You love him when he's on your team. You kind of don't really love him when he's on the opposing team. But he has been known, like I said, to run hot. I mean, he had that really, I thought it was kind of gross, actually, the elbow to the back of the head against Alabama. Chris Youngblood at Alabama got him ejected. Obviously, he was then suspended at the SEC tournament to open the tournament by Auburn. And, of course, he got thrown out of an NCAA tournament game 2 years ago when Auburn played Yale. So you have to take the good with the bad. I'll just say that, I kind of called around on this today. I think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks with Chad Baker-Mazara. One, I don't think Auburn was really all that. I had him come. Listen, I did an updated top 25, and I had Chad Baker-Mazara as part of Auburn's team as of 9 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday. But with Chad Baker-Mazara, I think you just don't know what you're going to get on a day-to-day basis. Now, what was interesting was Jeff Goodman put out a tweet that basically said he signed some sort of paperwork that is insinuating that if he leaves, he's going to owe Auburn some money. So maybe it's not going to be going to the portal as quickly as he thinks. Maybe, schools are going to say, well, wait a second. Now we have to pay you and we have to pay Auburn. Good luck with that. So it'll be interesting. But the one thing I will say, it was the hottest debate on Twitter this afternoon. Chad Baker-Mazara, if you're Kentucky, you need a wing. Is this a guy you'd be willing to put up with? Veteran dude, great defender, SEC veteran, whatever. Arkansas obviously may need a replacement for Carter Knox. So I just bring it up because he is certainly a character. Before all the rush of portal news today, we were actually going to do a separate segment just on Chad Baker-Mazara if he's worth it. But I bring it up because he is officially in the portal. 1 year of eligibility left. He's also really old. He's like 25 years old. He's one of these kids. He did a year at JUCO, so he technically has another year of eligibility because of that. But it'll be interesting. I'll say this. I wouldn't put Auburn completely off the table, but I don't think he's coming back to Auburn. So if he's not coming back to Auburn, where could he potentially land? It'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see, to say the least. Last big name, and producer Matt, just so you know, there's a couple guys that I didn't mention to you, but we'll get to at the end. But listen, I'm going to say this name wrong because I've said it wrong for 2 years. Stojackovic. Not that part. I'm not going to. Is it Andrej? Is it Andres? Is it? I apologize to the Stojackovic family. By the way, he's from the Bay Area. He played on the Compton Magic. I know the Compton Magic guys really well. There's an interview of me with him somewhere from about 3 or 4 years ago when he was at the Pangos All-American camp. So Andrej Stojackovic, we're just going to call him Andrej, okay? But Peja's son, you know that. Really interesting backstory, and as interesting, he is a freaking good player, okay? I remember that week at Pangos All-American camp. He was a kid that great shooter at the time. He struggled a little bit to shoot the ball, but great shooter at the time, great playmaker off the dribble, and great pure scorer. By the way, plays a lot like his dad did. But he goes to Stanford as a true freshman. He was okay, but I don't think it really clicked for him, and sometimes it just doesn't. And he enters the portal last year, though. By the way, former McDonald's All-American, so it's not like he is some, Johnny come lately as far as a guy that's still developing. No, he was a McDonald's All-American. He was a very good high school player. Okay, so it is Andre. Man, producer Matt, you're all over it. So Andrej Stojackovic, okay. So by the way, I know everybody in the comments, oh, Torres, you claim you're an expert. You don't know. I'm sorry. There's like 2,000 kids in the portal. I'm sorry I don't know every single person's proper pronunciation, okay? Nail PJ Haggerty. So leave me alone, okay? Andrej Stojackovic. I apologize to the Stojackovic family. If you're watching, I apologize. Atope, all my Compton Magic people, if you're watching, I apologize as well. Anyway, shout out to Domo too. Love the Compton Magic people. Anyway, Page's son, I'm going to stop calling him Page's son because he's his own player now. Andrej Stojackovic turned into a really good player. Freshman year, he was okay at Stanford. They changed that coaching staff up. Everybody goes in a different direction. What was interesting, though, he went into the portal, and you could still see how desired he was as a player. North Carolina went after him hard. Kentucky, under Mark Pope, that first offseason, went after him hard. He ends up going to Cal, and he turns into, remember, Cal was in the ACC this year, turns into an all-ACC player. 18 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, about a block per game. And I think that the thing about him, I still think there are layers to his game that are untapped. He was, in high school, a very good three-point shooter. Now, in his career, he has not been great. He only shot 32% this year. Now, I think part of it is that, you know, he has been the focal point for the last 2 years of you know, his team's offense. And so if he goes somewhere where he isn't the absolute focal point, I think there's a possibility he could be a much better shooter. And he was a better playmaker when I used to watch him in high school than maybe he's shown with the assist numbers. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, he's from the Bay Area, started at Stanford, transferred to Cal. Is this the year that he makes the big boy move to the highest levels of college basketball? And I know Cal was in the ACC. I know Stanford was in the Pac-12. But the Blue Bloods have been barking up that tree for about 4 or 5 years now, since he was probably a junior in high school. Well, he's through 2 years of college basketball. What's interesting about him, he is in the portal, did not declare for the draft. Why is that important? He's coming back to play college basketball next year. So you don't have to worry about, well, he's in the, you know, he's not a Darian Williams. He's not a RJ Lewis. He is in the portal looking for a new home. And is this the year that he makes the big move to a big boy program? No disrespect to Cal. It's just kind of the truth. As far as the schools, again, what's interesting, go back and see who recruited him last year. North Carolina has wanted him bad twice. Thought they might have had him last year. He ends up at Cal. Kentucky, under 2 different coaching staffs. I remember talking to him in high school about Coach Cal at Kentucky. Coach Cal leaves. Mark Pope comes in. Mark Pope wanted him last year. And so both those teams probably still need a little bit of wing help. You know, I think Kentucky's still looking for that one more scorer on the wing at that 3, you know, wing spot. Is he a fit? North Carolina, you know, they're kind of good on the wing, but Jaren Stevenson's like a 4. Could this guy play 3? I don't know. Also worth noting with him, who was the other school that was after him hard? Give me a sec. I wrote it down here. Michigan. Michigan came after him really hard last year. Michigan, they got the front court figured out with Dame Sarr, with Merez Johnson, and with maybe Yaxel Lendenberg. Is this a kid that could potentially land there as well? So we'll see with Michigan. By the way, I apologize. Andrej Stojackovic, again, great player at Cal. And again, he's in the portal to stay in college. So I think that becomes interesting. 2 other portal notes that I just want to hit on really quick. Producer Matt, I did not give you these, so I apologize. One, our boy Will Wade quietly making some moves. NC State is going to host Darian Reed this coming week. So I'm a big Darian Reed guy. He is the guy that, of course, if you don't remember the story, was a McDonald's All-American, played this past year at Alabama. And, you know, I was playing well early in the year. He pulls a hamstring. He's not 100%. He's not playing great, this, that, the other thing. But then the question becomes, okay, like, you know, he comes back and all of a sudden Grant Nelson's role is kind of defined. Cliff Omoyori's role is kind of defined. And so I only bring it up because he was a guy that I just felt like just really, it was not anyone's fault. It wasn't Nate Oates' fault. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't Grant Nelson's fault. I just felt like there wasn't a spot for him. Gets hurt, struggles to come back, doesn't come back, but he's about 6'8", 6'9", really good around the rim. I think he's more skilled than he's gotten credit for. He's from Georgia originally. The original thought process was he might be going to Georgia, but I solely bring it up to very simply say he is visiting NC State next week. NC State, by the way, had Mackenzie Mbako on campus the last couple of days. I don't know if they would take both of them, but I think it would be interesting to see. if Darian Reed goes there, I think Darian Reed could be like an all ACC kind of player if he got comfortable in that system. The other big piece of news I would keep an eye out for, Ian Jackson, been in the portal. We just talked about North Carolina with Stojackovic. Ian Jackson entered the portal the night of the championship game, so he's been there for about 2 weeks. Visited USC with Coach Muss. They had the relationship dating back to when Coach Muss was at Arkansas. He actually visited Georgia this week as well. There's some tie between one of his AAU people or something in Georgia. I think he's going to be committing to St. John's here, I think, any moment. I think by the time we come back on air, don't know if we'll do a show Sunday because it's Easter, but whether it's Sunday or Monday, I think he is a member of the St. John's Red Storm. By the time you see this, I would expect him to be a member of the St. John's Red Storm. We'll see if anything changes, but those are your portal updates. But I'll say this, Thursday got wild. Portal closes, if my math is correct, next Tuesday. I believe it's the 25th that it officially closes. 23rd. I think it's the 23rd that it officially closes. The point being, do you know where your star players are? Because keep tabs on them. Because I'm telling you, I just think this is an important and I think everybody's doing this. The article, Matt Norlander did a great article on how much teams are spending right now. But I think the context that's missing, you have so many teams that built their whole roster around being super old this year that now have to go back into the portal and replace 7, 8, 9 guys that graduated, and there just aren't enough good players. And so people are going to keep tampering, trying to get more guys in the portal. Again, do you know where your star player is? Because if you don't, you better find out quick. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, come back. When we do, again, if there's questions, we'll get to some questions. Drop your comments. Obviously, we'll prioritize super chats. And then from there, we will talk about 2 interesting high schoolish stories. Nate Ament. I think we might finally get a commitment from this kid. Also, Dame Sarr, new name to know. Quick break. Be right back.
What's up, everybody? It's AT, and listen, long day of podcasting. Sometimes don't always look the best. So look at this. It's a little bit not great, okay? Well, here is the great news. The great people at Firebox said, Torres, you're a professional. You just got 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. You need to look better. And so they sent me a couple awesome things. I want to pull them out for you right now. This is all from the winter collection, by the way. Spring collection is coming out. We got the vest, very, very, very nice. The sweater, very professional for when I go to professional events. We got these nice blue jeans. I think the question now everybody's asking is, Torres, how do you actually look when you put that stuff on? Let's find out. Well, what do you think? Sweater fits perfectly. Great for all occasions. When I go to games, when I go out to a dinner, warm weather, cool weather, it's perfect. Speaking of perfect, these jeans are phenomenal. Great for games, great for social events. Oh, by the way, a little bit stretchy if those New Year's resolutions aren't going on as planned. Really quickly, we got to try out. Let's try out the vest. It fits perfectly, not a surprise. So here's the deal. If you want to look as good as Torres, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to Fioboc.com. That's Fioboc. Fioboc.com. And here's the best part. For listeners to the Aaron Torres pod, you get 20% off with code Torres20 at checkout. We also put a referral link in all of our YouTube videos. Thank you to Fioboc. By the way, make sure you're following them on social media at Fioboc. Thank you to Fioboc. You want to look as good as Torres, check them out. Again, promo code Torres20.
All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So one little piece of news here. I just mentioned with Carter Knox about 20 minutes ago, a couple players that I'm waiting on NBA draft decision stuff for. I only bring it up because just moments ago, one of the other players that I'm very intrigued by, a player by the name of Carter Bryant, who I think he is a rock star kind of college basketball player, played at Arizona this year, thought Tommy Lloyd kind of eased him into college basketball, whatever. I only bring it up because it was just announced by one of the Tucson newspapers, although now all of a sudden the report is gone. So I'm a little confused as to what's going on here. Okay, here it is. So Tommy Lloyd told the Tucson Star forward Carter Bryant would test the NBA draft process, but has signed a revenue sharing agreement if he returns to Arizona. To me, I'll be real. I don't think that's a good sign if you're Arizona. Let me explain why. Carter Bryant is a rock star. I thought he was, listen, I'm not going to tell Tommy Lloyd how to coach his team, but I thought Tommy Lloyd kind of eased him into college basketball this year. And I think, with a kid of that talent, You just have to go full Calipari and just throw him into the fire and let him develop at his own pace. 6'8", 6'9", average about 6.5 points, 4 rebounds per game. If you watched Arizona, kid's a pro. Kid is, and this is why to me it's not a good sign if you're Arizona. Is that if he's testing the NBA draft waters, the feedback is going to be so good that he's going to stay in the draft. Like I don't want to be a jerk about it, but I'm just telling you, he is too good. He is one of those guys that's going to go in. He's got NBA size, NBA skill, NBA whatever. He's going to destroy workouts. And really, once you get past the first 2 or 3 picks, everyone is a projection anyway. After Cooper Flagg, who's a guarantee? Ace Bailey's all over the place. Kasper Jakshonis has had good days and bad days. Jaeger Demon, good days and bad days. Carter Bryant's going to be a top 10 pick. And so once he gets out of that Arizona bubble, I would worry. I would worry that as he gets into that NBA ecosystem, he's going to kill workouts. He's going to get some guarantee. I don't think he's going to be back. I hope I'm wrong because I would love to see this kid play college basketball. I'll tell you this, if he does come back, I think there's an argument Arizona's the number 1 team in the country with Jaden Bradley, Koa Pete, Braden Burries, but I don't think this is a good sign for Arizona. Again, I've just seen way too many players that start the draft process and once they get into it, they kill. Right now, ESPN has him as number 20 in their most recent mock draft. I will make a bet right now here at 6:55 Eastern on April 17th. If he stays in the draft, he's going, I would say, in the top 15. He's going much higher than 20. I think it's a good sign he's not going to enter the portal. Now, I don't think he was ever really a candidate to enter the portal, but to me, not a great sign if you're Arizona, because to me, that kind of says that once he enters the draft process, I think that's a bad move. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears. There are 2 recruiting stories that I do want to get to from over the last couple days. The first one, the long national nightmare appears like it is about to be over. You know that meme from Titanic? It's been 84 years. Well, that's what it feels like following the recruitment of Nate Ament. He is the only 5-star still available in the class of 2025. We've talked a lot about him over the last probably 6 months, 8 months, year. I think we're finally going to get a conclusion and decision on his college recruitment. I think it's coming soon. I'll say this. I think it might be a little bit of a surprise as to where he lands. So listen, with Nate Ament, we've talked about him a ton. 6'9" player. The thing I'll say, recruiting process has gone a little bit long, but darn is he a good player. 6'9", plays like a guard. He can handle the ball. He can shoot the ball. He can dribble the ball. He gets others involved. He's a distributor. He's a playmaker. He does a little bit of everything. I've said it a few times. For whatever I'm going to say about the recruiting process, AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson is going to go number 1, number 2 in the draft next year. But there are NBA people that are like, if it all comes together, Nate Ament might be the best player in this class of 2025. Like I said, 6'9" can do it all. Okay. Where it's been interesting in his recruitment, it has been a long road to get to where we are now. Okay. So he was one, and I've told the story a few times, but really a late developer. Duke was on him early, but it was really last April and May that everybody else was like, oh, this kid's pretty good. We got to get on him. And he really blew up right around this time last year. That was when Louisville offered him, when UNC offered him, when UConn offered him, Kentucky with the new coaching staff and Mark Pope offered him. And he was a player that from the beginning, really kind of took his time with the recruitment. In the fall, visited Louisville, visited Tennessee, visited Texas. They don't even have the same coach anymore. Visited Notre Dame. I mean, he's really taken his time. And then as the season went on, took a second visit to Duke for the Duke-UNC game. Boozer twins were there. Took a second visit to Tennessee. Took a visit to Kentucky for, ironically, the Tennessee game there. And I looked it up. It was late February, finally cut his list down to 5. And the final 5 were Duke, Louisville, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Tennessee. And what's interesting about it is there's been about 5 different times where it felt like he was going to commit somewhere, where it felt like there was a new leader. But like I said, I think we're actually going to get a decision in the next couple of days. I feel like the recruitment has been trending this way. I think it's going to be Tennessee, believe it or not. And ironically, right before we went on air, I just saw Travis Branham, who's a great recruiting writer, put in a crystal ball. I think it's going to be Tennessee. I think Duke is still in the mix. I think everybody else is pretty much out. First of all, I can tell you for a fact, Louisville is out. Okay. Louisville, at one point, I thought Louisville might be the favorite. Remember, he showed up at the ACC tournament with a Louisville booster sitting courtside for Louisville Duke. Okay. But as the offseason has gone on, I mean, Louisville spent a lot of money. Nobody knows the exact amount, but Pat Kelsey was aggressive early, got the job done early, got his guys early. And when you sign Isaac McNeely, when you sign Adrian Woolley, the kid from Kennesaw State, when you sign Ryan Conwell, when you have Mikkel Brown Jr. coming in, one of the best players that you've gotten committed this century, the bill adds up quick. Javon Hadley, by the way, is coming back. James Scott is coming back. And so I think Louisville's just kind of out of money. And they're just kind of like, we went another direction. It's over. Arkansas, it's kind of the same. Listen, we've talked a lot about Arkansas on this show. 2 high-profile Porter players, high school class. By the way, I'll say this. I think there was a time where part of the reason Arkansas was moving slow in the portal is because I think they kind of felt like they were in the mix for Nate Ament. And then as time went on, I think they just kind of got to the point where it's like, dude, are we doing this or are we not? And again, I think if you had asked me first week of April around the Final Four time, I think Arkansas might have been a favorite at a certain point this spring. I think as time went on, Calipari's like, I got guys that want to commit, dude. If you don't want to be part of this, or if you do, let's make a decision now. If not, we're going to go another direction. I think they did. With Kentucky, I don't even know if Kentucky was ever really, 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 really in the mix. He obviously, after he visited Kentucky, I think there was a lot of buzz, but I always say this is everybody, if you're not trending for a recruit after they visit, you screwed up bad, because obviously when a kid visits, you're going to put the best foot forward, blah, blah, blah. That's not. So to me, it feels like it's down to Duke and Tennessee. And I've really gotten the sense the last couple of weeks that Tennessee was kind of in the driver's seat. And it's actually not for any like crazy insider reason. It's just that they need players bad. You look at all these rosters. I mean, again, we've talked about all the schools that still need players. Kentucky's still needs a player or two, but they're largely in pretty good shape. Louisville's largely in shape. They might add a guy, but I don't think they're adding much from here. Arkansas, we've obviously talked about. Tennessee needs dudes. I mean, you look at the roster. They're bringing in Jacoby Gillespie, the guard from Maryland, and they have Felix Akpara coming back. But outside of that, there's just not a lot there. I mean, I think Tennessee, and I always say this with all these coaches, whether it's Bruce Pearl, Bill Self, Chris Beard, Rick Barnes, John Calipari. Rick Barnes is used to winning at a high level. And Rick Barnes, I would assume, has the support of Tennessee fans and boosters. By the way, all of a sudden, there's all this extra money in the Tennessee collective. There's $2.4 million all of a sudden that we isn't accounted for thanks to our buddy Nico Imamaliava, okay? But I just bring it up because when I look at this situation, Rick Barnes, he's not going to just punt on the 25-26 season, but he needs players and he needs in a hurry. And so Nate Ament, it feels like he's been kind of squeezing this out for the highest possible NIL dollars. Well, now you put yourself in this situation, and you're in a situation now where Tennessee's kind of desperate. And so whatever you need from Tennessee, you can probably get from Tennessee because they need players, and they need good players bad. I wouldn't rule out Duke just because I'd never rule out Duke, but I will say, I'll be curious what Shire does. First of all, we got the news, Caleb Foster, their backup guard, is coming back. We'll see with Tyrese Proctor as we record. There's no official word on Tyrese Proctor. We're recording again on Thursday night at, whatever it is, 7 o'clock Eastern time. But Tyrese Proctor, we have no word on. Isaiah Evans, we have no word on. But they already have a bunch of freshmen committed. Cam Boozer's a rock star, was great in the McDonald's game, was great in the Nike Hoop Summit. Caden Boozer, I've always liked. And then, of course, Nick Kamenia, I believe is how you pronounce the name. So, I mean, you got a lot of freshmen as it is. I think if this kid was ready to commit today, Shire probably takes him. But I just don't know that he's a priority, even what it was 2-3 weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. Right now, I would say Nate Ament probably ends up a Tennessee Vol. And I think finally, mercifully, it's going to maybe come to an end pretty quickly here. And when I say pretty quickly, he said the other day, he said the next week or two. So who knows? Maybe by the time you see this, he is a Tennessee Vol. But to me, I think he'll probably commit here soon. Producer Matt saying that he does need a fifth for his rec league, not his rec league, but his adult league. I don't know if you have the NIL money. I don't really know what your budget is, Producer Matt, but I think the NIL will probably be a factor in wherever Nate Ament ends up playing college basketball. All right. I do want to wrap. One more name, because this one to me is so interesting. By the way, we appreciate the support of everybody listening, everybody tuning in. By the way, I'm looking at the chat. A lot of Nate Ament not very happy with him. But I know who everybody's happy with. This kid on the screen right here, Dame Sarr. Okay, so let's get into this. And the one thing I will say, every year my job kind of evolves a little bit, and it's fun. It's one of the fun things. Like college basketball now, we might not like everything about it. It's so much more interesting in the offseason. But one of the trends that I noticed last year, we've gone through the portal stuff, we've gone through the high school stuff, whatever. But one of the trends that I've noticed really specifically last year, a lot of really good international players are coming to college basketball. Last year, remember, we were talking in May about Yegor Demin coming to BYU. We were talking about Kasper Stojackovic coming to Illinois. And so I only bring it up because over the last couple of years, the European players are now realizing, oh crap, there's a lot of money to be made in college basketball. By the way, if you're good enough, it's great exposure. I mean, Stojackovic, I think, went from being like a probably middle of the first round guy to a potential lottery pick. Yegor Demin the same. So it's great exposure if you're the right player. But one thing I was going to say was the last couple months, I've spent a lot of time just talking to sources and contacts and this and that, trying to figure out, okay, who's the next Yegor Demin? Who's the next Kasper Stojackovic? Who are the international players that I need to watch out for that could potentially play college basketball? Well, I bring it up because you can see the face right there. You can see the name on the bottom of the screen. Dame Sarr is a name that has popped up quite a bit, okay? He is a wing, originally from Italy, about 6'6". Played for FC Barcelona. Obviously, they have the soccer team, but they have basketball as well. And he's a very interesting story, okay? He's about to be 19 years old, so he is technically draft eligible. I don't think this year necessarily went exactly how he wanted it to. And what becomes interesting with him is that he is technically draft eligible, but it feels as time goes on more and more like this could be a kid who's playing college basketball here over the next the next year, okay? I don't think anybody would have said that maybe 6 months ago. I know probably even 2 months ago, there was probably only one school recruiting him. But I just bring it up because it feels like this kid, who could be a potential NBA draft pick this year, is going to say no to the NBA, play college basketball. So let's go ahead and dive in. What's interesting about his recruitment, first off, Illinois was like, by the way, for people who are watching this clip, we're like an hour and 10 minutes into this show. So my brain's all over the place. But so originally, let me start over. Originally, it felt like everything was trending towards Illinois. It felt like they were early on him. Illinois, to their credit, has done a great job recruiting in Europe. Stojackovic, as we've said, Tomislav Ivisic, of course, they brought over last offseason. And it felt like they were in the driver's seat. It felt like they were in great shape. It felt like they were going to get him. But it feels like the last month or so, 3 weeks or so, feels like for whatever reason, that, kind of buzz is kind of quietly dying down. Now, what's especially interesting about Dame Sarr is that if you pay close attention, he played in the Nike Hoop Summit over the weekend, and he was one of the best players on the floor. 17 points in that game, 4 rebounds. I believe it was 1 3-pointer made. And I think all of a sudden that recruitment just got a little bit more interesting from his perspective of all of a sudden there's all these eyeballs on him that maybe were familiar but probably didn't know a ton about him. I bring it up because among the schools that are now in the mix, Oregon, Kentucky, Miami, maybe BYU. Let's dive into all of them. First of all, I'll say this. I don't think BYU is maybe as much of a contender as a lot of the outlets have made it seem. They're pretty good on the wing. I would say AJ DeBonsa, who's going to be the number 1 or number 2 pick in the next draft, and Richie Saunders, who was all Big 12 first team this year. I'd say you're pretty good at the wing spots. I'd also say this, and I'll say this. I'm guilty of this too. I've noticed a lot of kids are just including BYU in a list, including Kentucky in a list. Yes, including Lamar Wilkerson. I screwed that one up. I own it. But they're including these schools in the list that they know are spending a lot of money. So you put BYU in the list to raise the price. Oh, BYU's interested. You got to jack that price up another $400,000, whatever. I don't really think BYU's in the mix. What I do think is this. I think Oregon's in the mix. Oregon, first of all, they got the Phil Knight money. They got the Big Ten money. They're not hurting for NIL, and they do need players. I mean, that roster just flips over year, that it's hard to keep track of. Obviously, they have the Shellstad kid coming back, really good player at the point guard position. But other than that, a lot of moving parts on that roster. It's worth noting that Nike Hoop Summit, of course, is in Portland, Oregon. So obviously they got maybe a little bit of a close-up look at him over the last couple days as the Nike Hoop Summit kind of was underway. But Jackson Shellstad should be back. But then other than that, again, some of these guys are graduating. Some have declared. Some of them are transferring. They need bodies. They need dudes. I've seen some people say that they're maybe the new leader in the clubhouse for him. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think they are going to be a factor. The other one that just becomes interesting, and listen, I've whiffed on a couple Kentucky predictions, so I'm not doing it here. Don't yell at me, Kentucky fans or other fans. I got killed for the Lamar Wilkerson stuff, okay? And I probably should have been. I should have been. Kentucky fans slap me around. I deserve it. But Kentucky's clearly interested. Mark Pope was at the Nike Hoop Summit. Now, I'll be real. I didn't even know coaches could attend that kind of stuff. I thought it was like an NCAA rules violation, tampering something. Apparently, Mark Pope was there. It was published and it was out there. And I'll say this, the one thing about Kentucky, one, not afraid to dip into the international waters. They added the Croatian kid a couple weeks ago. Two, they need help on the wing. Again, we thought they were getting Lamar Wilkerson, or at least I did. Maybe other people felt a different way. But they didn't get Lamar Wilkerson. Otega Owe has declared for the draft. You need scoring on the wing. And so this kid could come in. If he plays to his capabilities, be a first-round pick, maybe that's a spot for him. But Kentucky's going to take another guy regardless of what Otega Owe does, and I think Otega Owe is coming back to college basketball. But I just bring it up because kind of a nice fit, right? So could they push all their chips in the middle for him? And then the other one, I'll say this. Just keep an eye on Miami, okay? And I know when you see Miami kind of in a list like this, you kind of just, oh, Miami, whatever. They're not a factor. Jay Lucas is a dog, man. Jay Lucas is a freaking dog, and he's quietly actually put together a very nice roster. Malik Renew from Indiana has transferred there. Trey Donaldson, who started with producer Matt's Auburn Tigers, then to the Michigan Wolverines. He's committed there. True Washington is a nice player. And the one thing I'll say with Jay Lucas, he takes a backseat to no one in recruiting. He takes a backseat to no one in relationships. They actually themselves just got another international player over the last couple days. And so I just bring it up because he is a guy that I think, it's almost like NC State with Will Wade. You're going to start seeing these schools more and more on kids' Final 5, Final 10, Final 3, whatever. And I think the inclination is, Miami's not a factor. If Kentucky's recruiting them and Illinois is recruiting them and no. Miami is going to be a factor in these recruitments. So yeah, this stuff happens quick. I am trying to figure this out in real time. I don't claim that I have any crazy insight other than that I don't think BYU is going to be in the mix. But this is a name to know because it feels like he's going to be playing college basketball next year. All right, I think that's it. I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We're at about an hour 10 as we always do. I think we're going to get out of here. Yeah. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, that's what I need you to do. Please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, please make sure that you're subscribed. Also, make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. I'm going to get out of here. I'll be real, not totally positive if we'll do a show Sunday. It's Easter. So first of all, I hope everybody has a great Easter weekend, a great Easter Sunday. Spend time with family. If there's news worth discussing, then we will probably come back on Sunday. And if not, then guess what? We will probably just come back on Monday. So we'll see what happens this weekend. If it's warranted to have a show on Sunday, we will. Otherwise, we'll be back Monday. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You FN unblock me, bro. I'll be back Sunday night, maybe Monday. New episode.